and welcome to this third episode of Dilemmas, Series 2 of the Real Sales Manager podcast, where we explore typical dilemmas faced by practicing sales managers. I'm Steve Hoyle, and I'm delighted to be joined by my guests. Firstly, Sophie Steele, who describes herself as a coach, trainer, and a recovering sales manager, who now spends her time figuring out what actually makes people perform. Hi, Sophie.
Hi, Steve.
Also, Richard Bounds is a sales leader with over 30 years experience scaling businesses from startup to trade sale and managing large enterprise sales teams across Europe, and who now works as a board advisor and fractional leader, helping tech companies accelerate revenue and scale. Welcome, Richard.
Nicely said. Thank you, Steve.
Okay. Our special guest today, I'm delighted to welcome Scott Cassie. Scott brings a different perspective to our discussions. He's, again, a very seasoned and very successful salesperson and sales leader, but he has vast experience in the financial services sector, leading teams in both client management, what many of our listeners and viewers would call account management, but also new business. He's got great experience of the North American market, but also a lot of experience around Europe. I've known and worked with Scott for in different ways over the last few years. He is a consummate professional as a salesperson and a sales leader, and he has particular skills in developing sales talent. So, Scott, welcome. And you're in New York State, I believe, today.
Yes, and thanks, Steve, for the invitation. It's great.
Okay, no, it's great to have you on the episode. Right, so let's kick things off with our first dilemma, which I'll just read it out and then ask all of you to respond. So you've just conducted a major review of your business and concluded that due to a major legacy service being discontinued, recurring revenues are almost certain to decrease quickly over the next 2 years. On the other hand, some exciting new solutions put you well placed to attack new business. Your current team has too many account managers who see themselves as farmers, and you don't have enough new business hunters. So one of your salespeople, Andy Abel, has an account portfolio that will certainly decrease over the next 12 months, and you have decided that you cannot justify that headcount. Andy's been with you for 3 years. He's always made targets, has a wealth of experience of your product range, is well liked, works reasonably hard, but has no experience of new business and portrays very much the kind of nurturing account management, client management approach. You believe you've got two options. You could make Andy's role redundant, which is a long and tortuous process. It will vary depending on which country we're talking about, but you could make him redundant and then use the headcount to open up a new business sales head. And HR advise you that that's possible because the two roles can be described differently. Or you could send Andy on some training, possibly personal coaching, and put them into the new business role, which is obviously a risk. What would you do? We'll start with Richard, because Richard, I know you've managed new business and account management teams previously. What would you do in this situation?
Well, I think first off, I think the main statistic you said is about he's actually hit target for the last 3 years. So I think the analysis I saw recently is something like 28% are hitting target at the moment with Ebster and Pavilion. And if that's repeated the last 3 years, I think Andy deserves a chance. So I think especially if he's knowledgeable and likable, from my experience as well, modern account managers need to be a bit more, need to be proactive. They need to kind of be quite analytical about the customers, and they need to, actually have real drive to succeed. Otherwise, they wouldn't have hit target 3 years on the go. So I think I would be sitting down with Andy quite early on and understand, explaining the situation and the opportunity around the new business chance for growth. I think be candid about the concern about what gaps you think he's missing, call them out, agree them jointly, and then build a plan to improve some of those sort of skills, whether that be coaching, training, some mentoring, working with other people in the team that are perhaps better at those elements, and then just put some measures in place to monitor progress down the path. So I personally don't.
Yeah.
I'm not going to throw it out there, but I don't see there's any other option, to be honest, personally.
Oh, okay. Well, we might debate that. Um, so fundamentally, you believe that a good account manager can become a good new business salesperson with the right support and things.
Yeah.
And yeah, and how long would you typically wait to see whether they've made that transition or not? Because that's one of the big issues here, I think.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the hunter farmer categorization, I still think there's some relevance in that, but I do think a modern account manager does need to be, proactive, can't just sit there waiting for orders. That isn't what's happening, I think, in their world in this day and age. So but I do
Yeah.
think there are some definite differences between your out and out hunter and your out and out farmer, but I do think people can make the transition as long as they've got that energy and drive and curiosity. I think they could make that transition,
Right.
and we
Okay.
can perhaps support them in the right way as well. So
For sure.
maybe they might not be great at cold calling, so we might need to do a little bit more creativity with marketing and other aspects as well.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Scott, would this work in financial services and in the North American market, for example?
I would say, Richard, I'm with you, trying to keep Andy. I would, given the fact pattern with what we know about Andy so far, I think he sounds like someone who could be repositioned from what we hear so far. I agree with you, Richard, that account management, still is a lot of new business or proactivity that still needs to go on. You need to retain the client. You're always looking for additional share of wallet coming from those clients. So there always is looking for those opportunities. Hopefully, Andy has been doing that. I would sort of go about it a little bit in a different direction where I would first sit down with myself and say, do I have explicit job descriptions between the two roles? I'm not sure,
Okay.
as you described it, Steve, that there is something that's written down right now, because I would want to be able to sit down with Andy and give objective differential between the two jobs when I'm
Okay.
discussing what his skill set is and what he needs. The second thing, again, doing this sort of quickly, the second thing is I would want to make sure that I'm not quite sure where my role is in the organization, but I want to make sure that the organization is behind me on this, because there can be politics involved. There might be another group might want that headcount that I'm not aware of yet. So I want to sort of feel that out. I'd also want to make sure between HR and talent development that we do have those resources and budget in order
Yeah.
to up train Andy or train him over. I do like, Richard, your idea of pairing him up with some the new business people to see how that works so he can trail them. And I would also get some feedback from them to see how they feel he's doing. But I also agree with you. There has to be a timeline of development and milestones that you hit, almost like a reverse performance improvement plan. You're not looking to manage a person out. You're looking to manage a person up. So those are some of
Yeah.
the things I would consider. There's a lot of questions that go in there, but the bottom line of wanting to keep the person, but then how do we do it? Oh, and the last thing I
Yeah.
would do is, once I have all that put together, I'd want to talk to Andy and see if he wants to do this.
Okay. Yes, because he may not.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of account managers can really balk at the idea of cold calling or developing things. Okay, so we've got 2 votes for retaining him and trying to transition him. Sophie, are you going to agree, or have you got a different perspective?
Well, I did have a slightly different perspective. Then, right at the very end, Scott swooped in and mentioned it, and I just thought, well, I'll get my coat now. So I don't disagree with either Richard or Scott, actually, but I was going to start off with by saying we're missing the third option, which is, what does Andy want? And
Yeah.
before I invest any time or energy in in anything at all, I would first want to understand what his perspective is. The reality is, because you could do an awful lot of work and then before you even ask that question, and that's just a bit of a wasted effort if he turns around and says, no, I'm quite happy to go. But the thing is that for 3 years, Andy's been rewarded for his job, for retaining, nurturing and growing existing customers. And that's the behaviour that I, as a manager or the organisation, has reinforced. So unless we actually ask Andy, how would we ever know?
Yeah. Okay, really good point. Okay, so I have to maybe try and make the case, the opposite case. I mean, when I look at the description I read out, he is well liked, a lot of experience about the product range, and in my experience, particularly today, new business people should not be product focused at all. He's got this nurturing approach, which is great, but it does, in my mind, paint the picture of somebody who's very good at keeping and maybe extending slightly existing relationships. You know, he's a good individual, hardworking, or reasonably hardworking. I don't know. What I've seen is people can make this transition. I don't really like the term hunter and farmer. I agree with the comments around, particularly today, account managers need to have that skill and attitude where they're trying to grow business, not just service it. But I've very rarely seen this work. But yeah, I can. It's probably 20% of the people that I've seen trying to make this move have succeeded, because it's not a skill. It's much more an attitude and an outlook on life. And I guess I would be concerned that you put Andy on all this training. It's going to take a while for him to transition over. It's maybe 12, 18 months at least before you know whether he's going to make it or not. And you're a long way down the road there, Sophie.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it reminds me of the model, the skill will matrix. So remember the skill will matrix?
Yes.
Where you the 4 quadrants, where do they have the skill, and you can teach the skill, and then you go across and do they have the will? You can't teach the will, either they've got it or they haven't. And so before I'd even think about investing in training or going down that route, I'd want to coach before I trained, because I'd want to uncover beliefs. Does Andy believe that he's not a salesperson, that he can't or he can do cold calling? Because no amount of training is going to fix that. So if I spend a little bit of time understanding his motivation, his fears, his mindset, then I think I'll be better placed to make that decision before I invest.
Yeah. Okay. Richard, Scott, anything that you're reflecting on, having thought about it for a few moments?
The one thing I think is I've been in a couple of different environments where how the organization works. I've had one organization that is very talent development driven, and therefore, if that were the environment I was living in, I knew I would have the support. I've been in another environment where we buy off the street. We buy people, they're a plug and play, they hit the ground running, and that's it. Where if somebody's not working, and it's not a GE drop the bottom 10% every year, but it was more, we're not going to invest. We don't have we don't have anybody except you, Scott. If you're going to be the sales manager, then you're going to commit to you being the person that does this. I, as a sales manager, I don't have the time. I shouldn't have the time just to take myself offline just to work with that one individual, because that could put the rest of my team at risk, whether it's new business or relationship or account management. So there's a lot of things that I would think about there that would, Sophie, as you say, might stop me from going forward at all.
Yeah.
Okay, Richard, anything to add? And I'll try and summarize.
No, I think there was some good points there. The whole kind of job description and making sure that Andy was fully aware of what he would or wouldn't be taking on. I think that would be crystal clear. And certainly, we worked in an environment in one of my latter roles where we had account managers, and quite often they would make the transition to new business sales. They would actually have some accounts as well, and it was seen, I wouldn't say fully as a training ground, but it was an opportunity for them to earn more money as a more predominantly new business seller, and they were drawn to that role. And as long as they had that, the things that I probably highlighted before, or collectively we've highlighted in terms of curiosity and drive, they were able to make that transition very successfully. So I think it can work.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So as with a lot of the dilemmas that we come across, it's kind of a nuanced answer, and we really need more information. What I in thinking about this beforehand, I hadn't thought about job descriptions, because in my experience, so few sales organizations actually have them up to date, which is bad, but that's the reality. But that's a good one. Talking to Andy himself is going to be key, and that whole business of, does the organization support it, not just in terms of the resources available, but the mindset and the attitude of them. I was also thinking about, the points you were making there about how the rest of the team react if you're having to spend time coaching a particular individual. I think there's some negatives, but there's also some positives there, aren't there? As sales leaders, it sends a message that we do care about people, that we're not just going to replace them because the market has changed a little bit, but we will go that little bit extra to actually support people. Very, very good.
True.
We could spend all of this episode just talking about, our hunters and farmers, fundamentally different individuals. I think we're all saying that you can cross over, but there is some fundamental will issues there about people who really enjoy that role versus people who hate it, and we can't force round pegs into square holes. Okay, I've got another dilemma here, which is, I think, in a very different area. So in this one, and so that first one was a genuine dilemma that I came across about 6 months ago with a sales director I was coaching. The second one is again a real one that came up very recently, but also reminded me of a dilemma I had personally many, many years ago. So here we go. You have recently become aware that one of your salespeople, John Sawyer, this is not a real name, by the way, John Sawyer is making some of your female staff uncomfortable. You've heard from 3 female colleagues that he is, quotes, creepy, quotes, looks at them in a funny way, and quote, is unsettling. There is nothing in his behavior that suggests a formal grievance or complaint is appropriate. Yet it is clear that at least these 3 females are unhappy to be in his vicinity. You yourself have not noticed anything, although you reflect that John, whose performance is reasonable, is not the sort of person that you would particularly want to socialize with, although you cannot put your finger on why that is so. Sophie, what would you do in this situation?
Ooh, it's like walking on hot coals in flip-flops. It's a bit of a melting pot, isn't it? I think the moment several women are telling me that they don't want to be around someone, then I think something significant has happened. And I think having had I actually haven't been in that situation before, but I've had many dealings with teams and HRs and issues. And I recognise that as a manager, my role is not HR specialist. So I absolutely would be going to HR to seek some advice, because the moment you become aware of an allegation or even talk, it's no longer mine to handle quietly or manage alone. It is much bigger than me, and there are bigger things at play that are outside of my scope of expertise, because I'm not an HR manager. So outside of initially documenting everything, I'm telling you now, I would just go to HR. seek
And
that
would
advice.
you, in going to HR, just seek kind of advice and guidance? Would you mention John by name?
Not initially, no.
Right.
No. So I would want to know that I was actually doing the right thing. I'm coming to you because something has occurred, has been
Yeah.
brought to my attention, and educate me, help me in the ways of what are the next steps and how I need to manage this. And then I would
Right.
be guided. Well, we need to know the name, and we need to know the names of the women who have made the allegation or the complaints, and who it's and I'm sure they'd probably say leave it with us, and they would take it further. So your involvement as a manager, you're taken out of the situation, so you can still manage your team effectively. Otherwise, you get sucked into one side or the other,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
an unsafe place to be.
Sure. My only pushback is they're saying things. He makes me feel uncomfortable.
Yep.
There is no specific behavior. There is no specific incident or words that have been reported.
Yep.
It's just kind of, I'm not sure about
Yeah.
this individual.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's
Okay.
it's you still got to do the right thing, because as a manager you have a responsibility to make sure that your environment is psychologically and physically safe for everybody.
For
And if
sure.
somebody doesn't feel physically or psychologically safe, then you have to do something about that. And you can't just, well, if you can't give me any evidence, then sorry, there's nothing I can do about it.
Scott, would this play out the same way, do you think, in the US?
Oh boy. Let me take it from something that's totally objective, where
Okay.
people have come to me in the past and said, I'm having difficulty working with some of your teammates or a teammate, for example.
Yeah.
And I'd be able to have more of a conversation and tease out of them, well, what is it? Is it style? Is it, they're not giving you enough time to react to a work request? What is it? If I had enough information there, I could then go to that person and say, I just want to talk to you about what others are saying because their perception is their reality. So how do you feel? What you feel is how you normally would work, how that might be affecting others. And might there be a way that you could perhaps just change your style and still get the work done at the same time, work would flow more easily amongst the team. Once it
Right.
comes to a male-female issue or any type of a sexual innuendo, etc., I would agree with you, Sophie. I would go straight to HR. And I don't think I would even ask the female individuals, what do you mean by that? They might feel that I'm challenging them, and that's
Yeah.
not the point. I would think that I was asking for additional information then to help with HR when I explain it to them. I don't think that's the right thing to do as a man in this situation. HR might say to me, thank you, let's document everything immediately from a legal standpoint for the organization as well as me individually. And they might tell me to have those individuals go speak one-on-one directly with HR. And again, I'm taken out of it as the manager because I don't want to be on one side or the other.
Yeah.
It's a very, very dangerous, and I have been there. It's a very dangerous place to be.
I think we're all going to agree it's very dangerous, and we have to tread very lightly. Richard, have you had similar situations or anything like this occur?
I was just thinking, not particularly similar to this, to be fair. I can't think of anything particularly along these lines, but I think when you read the question out, my first thought was similar to what Sophie and Scott was said. Was a little bit was help. I need to kind of speak to somebody that knows this domain better than me, and I would have gone straight to HR for help and had that discussion very early on.
Okay, what do you see the dangers in going to HR though? Anybody?
Well, you might be perceived by members of your team that you don't know how to handle the situation. There's that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be. That would be water off a duck's back to me. I wouldn't necessarily care about that. But sometimes if people come to you in confidence and you turn around and say, this is out of my hands, I actually need to escalate this, that might make them feel very uncomfortable. Maybe they don't want it to be escalated. Maybe they want you as the manager to deal with it. And when you say no, then their perception might change. They might be uncomfortable with it going to the next stage. So again, a little bit of a minefield, really.
Mm.
Very much so.
Yeah, I think if I'd have had somebody in the team, especially 3 people, speak to me about it, I think I'd have made it clear, even with the first person, that I would need to take some steer and guidance from HR as well straight away, so it wouldn't be a surprise that HR were involved. I think perhaps, like you said, you might want to keep the person's name out of it in the very first instance, but yeah, I don't think that would take long to be aired, especially with it not being a surprise either, I think was the sentiment you indicated, Steve.
Yeah. And Steve, the one thing I would not do is I would not say to the individuals that spoke with me, yeah, I really don't like hanging out with them either. But you mentioned that you have a gut feel about something going on, and you really don't. It's not like you want to work with them, but you don't want to go have lunch with them, or you don't want to, whatever that is, or have a cup of coffee. I would not share that because I wouldn't be able to explain my gut to somebody else. And then, Sophie, as you said, it would put me choosing sides.
Yeah.
And that would be a very dangerous place to go to, inadvertently.
Yeah.
I have to say that that last sentence that I put into the dilemma was from my personal experience years ago, where I did have a salesperson and I just didn't like them very much, but they did an okay job. But then I did start to get rumors around, particularly the ladies did not like this guy and found him, the word creepy was used at one stage. My only concern in these situations, as I say, I came across it recently, is as soon as you go to HR, they are duty bound to investigate.
Yeah.
And there will be documentation that is on somebody's file. It's maybe unsubstantiated. It may be that there's many reasons why people don't like other people. There is no smoke without fire. But on the other hand, you are innocent until proven guilty. So I just find it really, really difficult to know what to do here. I would definitely get some HR advice, but I'd think long and hard before I mention any names.
Yeah.
And I must say that both of my most recent employers, which span a number of years, were very, very good at giving us as managers, regardless of what department we were in, training about how to handle these situations. So we usually knew that there were tools available to us and to whom we should speak with. So it wasn't just jumping on us, so to speak. We were aware that there was a framework to help us.
Yes. Yeah. I think the other thing that always strikes me in these kind of situations is if somebody does kind of give off these vibes and the rest of the team know.
Yeah, it's like a virus. A virus, it spreads. Yeah.
Yeah. And it may be unfair on the individual.
Yeah.
But it will be known, and so you have to juggle with that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I've got one more dilemma, and this is kind of a quick fire round, I think. So you're just going into a customer presentation. You're walking in there. You've got your account manager by your side, and the person who's been your go-to from the customer is with you, and you're jointly presenting to the board of directors. And your day-to-day contact says, listen to my presentation. You'll notice that I'm going to claim that we've got an ROI of 30% within the next 12 months. In your proposal and your business case that you believe it's more like 15 to 20%. But your contact is saying he's going to put 30% forward as the figure, and he's just asking you not to react to that. So you've got a few moments. You listen to his presentation, and he's going to claim that this solution has a 30% ROI, which you think is over optimistic. What do you do? Richard.
Can't you ask somebody else first? So I think I'd let them run with it personally. It might not be the most I think if that's what they believe, and there may be other factors that they have worked on their own calculation. If you've left it that last minute, you can't make them look silly in front of their board.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily going to reinforce it or what have you, but I think you just let them run with it personally.
Right. Okay. Scott, where would you be on this?
I'm with you, Richard. I would not contradict my contact in front of his or her board. I think that would kill the deal. It doesn't matter what the ROI is going to be one way or the other. We won't be there. If I am then asked directly by the board, Scott, what do you think about Jane or John's presentation? I'll tap dance. I would say, there are many things that go into it. I think that is a strong potential, but there's a lot of time and many decision points between a decision now and what we finally get to, because you might even change the scope of need as we go through. So let's work with it for now and see where we go. But we're on board to helping as much as we can.
Right. A real tap dance. Yes. Sophie.
So maybe a little mixture of the two. So I don't believe in calling somebody out and contradict them in front of their so that's it. That's a given. And I think, like Scott said, if I was asked directly, I would also do a Michael Flatley and tap dance around it, and I'd say, optimistically, we hope to be here. There's a range, and it could be between here and here. And that's, and if everything falls into place, we're definitely looking at achieving that upper end. So I would do it like that. Is that a cop out? I don't know.
No.
But that's, I've got to be true to my belief, otherwise I'd feel a bit disingenuous. I'm not sure.
One thing I would also do, Steve, is if you said, I'm walking in with my account executive for that client, I would turn to them and say, I've got this one.
Okay.
To make sure that they don't take the fall for it, because that's a really senior level point to make. And a senior person is asking you of it. And I think it would be unfair to turn to my account executive, being junior to me, regardless if I'm the team lead, and say, I'll take this one. So don't you worry about this.
Really good points. Very good.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's so again, this was reported to me of a real life incident. I guess my only other point there would be, I think you have to do what you're suggesting, but I would go back to my regular contact after the event and have a bit of a discussion around our relationship, and don't appreciate being put in that position and the dangers we're all running, because that's interesting one.
And by the way, I would also go back and internally report upward that this is what happened, because this is a potential loss if something goes sideways. And I want to make no surprises to my lead executive director about this one.
Yes, it does need documenting that although we put in 15-20%, internally they have told their CFO it's going to be 30%, so it needs documenting. Excellent. Okay, well, listen, 3 quite different dilemmas today. Can an account manager, a client relationship manager, transition to new business? What do we do with this, what was his name? John Sawyer.
Creepy guy.
The creepy John, as some people call him. And then what do you do when your regular contact puts you on the spot in front of their boss? What would be the key takeaways for you guys from this? Richard, what would you take away from these 3 scenarios?
Well, I think the first one, just in terms of the transitioning and making the clarity, the job description, I think was a good addition, and making
Yeah,
sure you worked out with them what the skills gaps are and how you're going to address them, and that they've got to have the will to make it work as well. I think Sophie pointed that as well. That's got to be critical and part of that conversation up front. So I'd probably go back to the first dilemma.
yeah. Okay, interesting. Sophie, key takeaway for you?
Yeah, we're going to be a little bit facetious here, Steve, and feel free to edit it out. But I'm coming away with a bit of relief because you mentioned for the last, the second dilemma that it
Yeah.
happened to you, and I was a bit unsure whether you were the manager or the creepy guy. So I was quite relieved to find out that you were the manager in that situation.
Oh.
Sophie.
Sophie Steele, it's good job that I know you really well.
Wow.
Well,
It's a rough crowd, Steve.
I was definitely the manager in that situation. Whether I was ever the creepy guy, I have no idea. But
I've never described you as that way, Steve, ever to anybody I know.
thank you. Okay, Scott, any final reflections from you?
If I try to find a thread across all three of them, I would think as the sales manager, it would be transparency. I was transparent with Andy about what I'm thinking of doing and the reasons why and what I would like him to do if he wants to do it.
Yeah.
With the creepy John situation, I would be as transparent as possible with the individuals who have felt comfortable sharing with me and what position I am placed in and what I would need to do. And it's not because that's what I want to do, but that's what I should be doing and probably legally I must do. And so that puts them in the position where they want. And then thirdly, with the client, I think, again, as we all said, going back to the individual afterwards and saying, man, that was just uncool. You really put me in a tough spot. And I did not say that, and we have not had that conversation, but this is going to be a challenge for us. And the two of us will have to find a way to do this, but this is not going to be easy from my side, and I'm just letting you know that.
Yeah. And to back that up, because again, thinking about what happens in real life, we kid ourselves that we have this really strong open relationship with customers sometimes, and then they do stuff like this, and it just makes us have to reset and just think, have I really got the relationship where I would ideally like it, open and honest. Excellent. Well, folks, thanks ever so much. Once again, the time has just flown by. I've really enjoyed it. I've learned a lot. I'm going to reflect on all of this. But thank you ever so much. And we'll see Richard and Sophie on the next episode. Scott, thank you for interrupting your holiday as well to join us today.
Anything for you, Steve. You know that.
But
no, it was really enjoyable to work with you again. Sophie, great to see you again. Richard, nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Get Scott back. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot, folks. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye now.
If you're an aspiring, new, developing, or an experienced sales manager in complex business-to-business, or you know of someone who is, you may want to go to www.realsalesmanager, that's realsalesmanager, all one word, .com, to learn about our unique blend of training and coaching to help aspiring sales managers to decide if it's right for them and how to go about getting a job, to help new sales managers get as effective as possible, as quickly as possible, and to help developing and experienced sales managers with a personalized program to improve some of their specific skills.